On behalf of the Board of Directors and the membership of Anderson County, we're pleased to welcome both of you to our debate this evening. Prior to the debate, we flipped a coin to determine which candidates. Which candidate would answer the first question and who would go second? Frank Haynes won the coin flip and he will take the first question. This is how we will conduct the debate. We will ask each candidate the same question. We will have a total of 4 questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Once we've answered the first round of questions, the candidate 2 will be the first to answer the second round of questions. We will alternate until the end of the 4th round. After the 4th round, each candidate will be allotted 3 minutes for final remarks and to cover any issues or topics not presented in the prior questions and present any rebuttals. Let us begin. Gentlemen, you'll have 2 minutes each. Our official timekeeper, John, at 30 seconds will raise our card so that you can clearly see that. Once time is up, he will raise the card again. We just ask that you conclude your comments as briefly as you can at that point. First question. Frank, what are the key issues facing Kentucky that are having the largest impact in Anderson County currently?
I don't think there are problems that in Anderson County that's not peculiar to our state. And the biggest problem I think we have is economic development. About a month ago, we had a member of the Economic Development Cabinet who came to speak to Rotary. And he was asked a question. He says, what are the 4 major impediments that we have to expanding the economy and growing jobs in Kentucky? And he listed 4 items. The first thing he says is our education. He says, we have a reputation of having poor quality of education, and when I approach businesses to come to Kentucky, they point out that they don't believe that we have a viable force in which they can choose qualified employees. The second thing he said was, we have a burdensome regulation process. Very difficult, very time consuming in order for us to get licenses and permits to do business in Kentucky. Then he said, Kentucky does not have a taxing structure that is business friendly, and so this is another reason. And then he said, the last thing is we don't have a right to work law. And 1 in 5, 20% of the companies that he approaches to come to Kentucky to either expand their business or start their business, he said they will not come because they don't feel like that they have a level playing field to recruit and get employees. And so I would add one other thing is we have a tremendous unfunded liability on the pension system. We have a consensus bonding debt to both combined about $65 billion, and businesses aren't going to come because they know what taxes are going to come to pay for that.
Thank you. Senator Carroll.
Well, certainly jobs are important to any community, and that being the case, jobs are important obviously to Anderson County. But I think specifically because Anderson County has such a large state employee base and certainly a fairly large retirement base of individuals who either worked or are at some time or another in state government, that is a specific area in which I am very familiar and with which I have myself tried to respond to by looking toward those needs. Quite candidly, I consider myself an advocate for state employees in state government. I'm very familiar with their problems and very familiar with the pension system. And I do want to quickly mention with respect to the pension system, it's probably one of the more difficult matters facing the General Assembly in the coming session. And we've already responded to it some, the passing of a new retirement system for new employees that's not near as beneficial as our current system. But for we've got to do something about the unfunded liability. And probably what is going to be recommended is a bonded program. And quite candidly, I'm concerned about that, and I would say to you, it's my recommendation, if you're going to have a bonded program, that certainly it must have its own source of dedicated revenue. I do not believe that the general public with their taxes ought to have to pay for that deficiency, because candidly, when I went to the General Assembly in 2004, the General Assembly had already made the major mistakes that have caused this deficiency, and maybe I'll get an opportunity to cover those a little bit later tonight.
Thank you. Senator Carroll will move to the second round of questions. Second question is, although Anderson County has direct access to Interstate 64, the Bluegrass Parkway, US 127, is in close proximity to Interstate 75 and 65, and is geographically central to many industries, to include automotive. How do you plan to identify and overcome the obstacles Anderson County's economic and to Anderson County's economic and industrial growth?
Well, one of the things that we did, now I'm trying to think back at least 6 years ago, back in my second term, it might have been well in the latter part of my first term, we got the signs changed so that traffic can come through Lawrenceburg to get to 64. Prior to then, all the traffic went to the end of the parkway and had to find its way to 64, and quite frankly, it's easier to get to 64 we're going through Anderson County. So we were able to get some of the traffic that we think, quite frankly, was beneficial to all your businesses, certainly the gas stations and probably the restaurants. But beyond that, Mr. Haynes is right. Economic development is very, very important. But quite frankly, what he didn't mention is what the Chamber of Commerce have found is the benefits of Kentucky for industries to locate here. We have an excellent energy base, one of the lowest energy costs in the United States. Quite frankly, our cost of living is very reasonable for Kentucky compared to other states. And our unemployment compensation rate is very competitive. And we've been very successful in locating businesses. The major problem that we've had is training. And training not only for existing employees, but for new employees. One of the things that was brought up today at one of our committee meetings is the information that is available at our community college systems. And I want to let you know how proud I am of Anderson County's community college. I have my own grandson who graduated here and was able to get a good job at an industry in Frankfurt, and he's still there. He's on the day shift. He's making good money. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do to help our employees get jobs and help industry train those who need training in order to continue their jobs.
Thank you. Frank, would you like me to repeat the question? Although Anderson County has direct access to Interstate 64, the Bluegrass Parkway, US 127, is in close proximity to Interstate 75 and 65, and is geographically central to many industries, to include automotive. How do you plan to identify and overcome the obstacles to Anderson County's economic and industrial growth?
Some of the folks here in Anderson County approached me and saying that about an 8-mile extension of Bluegrass Parkway near Lexington would tie the end of the parkway directly into Interstate 64 and 75. And this should be a project that the state should at least consider, because that would make it very easy for the trucks to get from Anderson County over to Lexington and to the interstate system. The other, I live at the end of 151 near Interstate 64. There's an awful lot of traffic on 151, and what we need to look at is making that road wider and more accessible for truck traffic from here in Lawrenceburg to I-64 west. I'm not sure the kind of expense that would be involved in that project to extend the parkway from the current parkway over to the interstate. And I understand that you have to go through some property that's maybe pretty valuable in Woodford County, but certainly it's something that we need to be looking at very seriously.
Thank you. Frank, we'll start the third round of questions, and you'll have your first question. What do you hope to achieve in the next 6-year term that would impact Anderson County businesses and the community at large?
I think it's a 4-year term, but
Thank you.
I think, and Senator Carroll has mentioned it, education is something that's very important to us, and if we're going to create economic development that provides job opportunities for our kids as they're graduating from high school. We need to pursue education so that when businesses look at Anderson County as a potential for establishing a business, or those that are here want to expand their businesses, that they feel comfortable that they're going to have workers that they can draw on for their workforce. So, and when I observe the things that we're trying to do in as far as education, in 2011, I think all the schools, all the colleges in the state of Kentucky, we only produced one high school math and science teacher. And several initiatives have been where we would identify students that excel in math and science and offer them full scholarships for them to go to college, get their degree, and then be committed for a period of 4 or 5 years to teach in our high school. And so if we're engineering, I think it's something that we're lacking. Several initiatives have been taken to improve that. And so we have to look at the technical aspects of our education program and be willing to make those kind of decisions. And those that are opposed to it, we need to ask them, what is your solution? If scholarships for outstanding students in math and science is not acceptable, well, what is your plan for doing it?
Thank you. Senator Carroll.
Yes, I think your answer without being repeated. The need of Anderson County, of course, like most any county in this business climate that we got on a national basis, and that is difficult. A lot of people are unemployed, and certainly it's important that the national economy improve, and we're hopeful that it will certainly in the next 4 years. But a lot of our jobs depend on, unfortunately, the improvement of the national economy. But in the meantime, one of the things that we've been working on, and those of you with the chamber are fully aware of this, that we are getting more interested in regional development than we are in individual county location of a particular industry. Because our employees obviously have an opportunity to travel. Of course, location of the industry in your home county does help your local tax base, and that is important and would be important to Anderson County. But certainly, this opportunity to develop on a regional basis is giving you an opportunity, as we made the effort recently that you probably are well aware of, in our extension of the water line, particularly on 127, so that your new industrial development area could have that service readily available to an industry. The opportunity, though, for education is, as Mr. Haynes pointed out, extremely important. But fortunately, you have with community college here a tremendous opportunity for individuals if they will finish high school and not be a dropout. Some of you may well have heard my speeches, and one right here at Anderson County High School, in which I opened the line of my speech and said, I want to know from you students if you know why we build prisons in Kentucky. And of course, they all looked at me, why would you ask us that question? The answer is to hold high school dropouts. That is a major problem in Kentucky, and it's our effort now to get them to finish school, go out here to Anderson County Regional College, so they can get a good paying job and get a good paying salary with benefits.
Thank you. We'll start round 4. Senator Carroll will take the first part of this question. In business, we set long-term measurable goals and use benchmarks benchmarks to measure our successes and failures. How do we measure your progress and benchmark your successes and failures based on what you've outlined in the prior question?
Well, one thing you have to realize how the General Assembly operates. The House of Representatives is presently controlled by the Democrats. The Senate is presently controlled by Republicans. I will tell you, I've introduced several bills since I've been in the Senate, but for some reason or other, the President of the Senate's never seen fit to allow any of my bills to come to the floor. And that's his discretion. And that's the way the Senate operates. That doesn't mean I can't speak to other bills, and I do. I'm somewhat known as the historian in the Senate, because I tell them things they're trying to try, and things already been tried won't work, and things that we need to do. There really is a great opportunity, though, and it's an area you're going to hear me make a major speech that I've worked on for some time. I've already made it 3 times already, about the fact we've got to start cooperating together. It is not right for the public to send us down there and us not be able to get along and get their work done. The National Congress obviously needs to do the same thing. But I'm going to make a major challenge to my fellow members of the Senate this next time around. Let's get it done. Let's not have these special sessions. You know, the times I've been there, we had to have these special sessions where I gave my money back because it didn't feel like charging for it. The public didn't think I ought to get paid for a special session. I felt the same way, even though I wasn't responsible for doing it. But we've got to have cooperation between our political parties, and we've got to take care of the people's business. After all, that's why you said it.
Thank you. Would you like to repeat? In business, we set long-term measurable goals and use benchmarks to measure our successes and failures. How do we measure your progress and benchmark your successes and failures based on what you outlined in the prior question?
I would certainly agree with the Senator that bipartisanship is something that we absolutely have to have. But I would look to a simple thing that I think we could accomplish very easily if we were sincere about education. If you remember in 2010, in 2010, President Obama approved $4.1 billion to be distributed to school districts throughout the country. One of the things it was a competitive basis, and one of the things was charter schools. And 40 points were given to those states that had unrestricted charter schools. There was a bill that was prepared, and I think it was in the Education Department. I think Commissioner Holliday put it together, which he thought would give us the opportunity to get a great deal of those extra funds for education. When the bill came to the House floor, they took away the charter schools, which took away 40 points. So we forfeited 40 points before we ever started competing. It amounted to about $208 million that we could have gotten in Kentucky if we had just approved charter schools. Now you take continuing failing schools like Thomas Jefferson Middle School in Jefferson County, been failing for 20 years, and they would not even allow us to use it as a pilot program to see how charter schools might improve the education in Kentucky. To me, that's criminal that you are so wrapped up in the teachers union. Sharon Oxenine has more influence on education policy in Kentucky than our commissioner, Terry Holliday. And so, yes, you want to talk about bipartisanship. When it comes to the legislative tree, we don't have any problem getting partisanship. We put House Bill 299 through so that in the cases where we see senators who are bought off by the governor to go to other jobs, and in the process of doing that, double their pensions. And
Right. If you could pause for a moment. I'm going to give you 3 minutes for closing comments and for the closing rebuttal. We're going to start that round now. You'll now have 3 minutes for your closing comments as you might continue.
I'm not a politician. I'm a military officer. But I am so fed up with politicians. And I see it all. I worked during the session, 7 years I've worked. And I challenge each one of you, just spend a half a day and go during the session and just go to Frankfurt and watch what goes on in the meeting rooms. I guarantee you would not stand for what goes on there, and you wouldn't be reelecting the same candidate over and over again. You will see that the lobbyists in those committee rooms have more influence than the elected officials. And so I would say that we need to start looking at what's going on in our government, because there are things that are going on that sicken us. So that's one thing that I will do if I'm elected. The lobbyists will not have any influence with me whatsoever. I don't want their money. I haven't taken any of their money. I haven't taken any of the money from the Republican Party. I haven't taken any money from the Republican caucus, and I'm not going to, because if I go to Frankfurt, I'll be there to represent you and not the lobbyists who come to the committee room and give you the bill that they want you to vote on, the changes that they want you to make before you pass it. Thank you.
Good, Chairman.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce and certainly the Anderson County School Board for this opportunity. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for your coming. I often wish I had an opportunity really to speak to more people like you that are interested in your government, or you probably would not have even bothered to come tonight. Regardless of what political party you're here to support, I appreciate very much you coming and listening to us. I decided a long time ago, I guess back when I was in school, that I love public service. I often mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again tonight. You know, I started out as president 8th grade, and then I had an opportunity to be president of the student body, had an opportunity to go to Boys State when I was a junior in high school, and I was elected governor of Kentucky's Boys State when I was a governor at that time we called the Boys State government, sponsored by the American Legion. I got to go to Washington, D.C. and shake hands with Harry Truman. And I guess public service sort of bit me. I decided from there on to go to law school, and when I got out of the Air Force, I went over to Versailles, Kentucky and started practicing law. And so I went into the Air Force and went on back to my hometown of Paducah, got elected lieutenant governor. My family and I moved to Frankfurt in 1971, and we've been here ever since. Left office in December of 1979 and decided then to practice law in Frankfurt, because that's where most of my clients' problems were. So we settled there and bought us a farm out joining the Frankfurt Country Club. My kids have homes out there. We have 4 homes out there on the farm. And I spend my free time when I have it just out doing farm chores. I'm 7 minutes from the capital. And you know, it's hard to live in this community, Anderson County or Franklin, and really not be a part of, or at least listen to what's going on in state government. I was out of office for 20 years, from 1980 to 2004, and a bunch of people came to me in Frankfurt and said, why don't you run for the state senate? You've got the knowledge, you've been there, I've been Speaker of the House, I've been President of the Senate. Obviously, having been governor, wasn't much about state government that I didn't already have some information. So I ran in 2004, I ran against in 2008, and quite frankly, I'm 81 years old. I don't apologize for that, but I don't think I ought to quit. I think as long as my mind's operating good, and the guys around me say I'm sharper than most of them. I climb all the stairs at the Capitol every day. I don't even use the elevator. I'm there to represent you and there to represent the interests of people of Anderson County as well as the rest of my district. And I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do so.
At this time, if you would make your way off the stage, before you do so, though, let's give both of our candidates an round of applause.